Ahoy! Anchored with ThisThat. Setting sail with the captains of the creator economy. In this episode, we have Elfried Samba, CEO and co-founder of Butterfly Effect, and myself, Max Osborne, founder of ThisThat. The topic is rewiring the marketing nervous system. The power of community-led marketing, culture, relevancy, trust, and beyond. What to expect from this episode? This episode explores what makes the magic happen in marketing, focusing on mastering art and science to create 1 + 1 = 3 moments, building better brands together with community, and recognizing creativity is a minimum requirement for social. It's behavioral psychology at scale. What's your name, your job title, and company? And please, if you could, summarize what your role looks like.
All right. So my name is Elfried Samba. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Butterfly Effect. So Butterfly Effect is a creative and marketing agency. And what I do is I pretty much get people that are way smarter and more creative than me, and I give them a platform to actually be able to demonstrate their talents, and then to be almost like a spokesperson for them and allow them to work with brave brands. That's effectively what we plan to do. So that's my job in a nutshell, really.
I love that. I don't.
So yeah,
Max Osborne, founder at ThisThat. Role constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It always changes, and one reason why I say I love that is I have now been able to be in a position where I can step out of necessarily operating and executing every single day and be able to build a platform. And we've got a leadership team of 5 people who are absolutely incredible that can run their business. I see my role much more of articulating the strategy much more clearly and 10xing all the opportunities that we have. It's a bit of this, a bit of that.
I wish I was there. I'm still in the scrappy pit. So we just started about 15 months ago. It's going really, really well. Really exciting, working with some really great brands, but we're still like in it. But I think the race of leadership is how quickly can you go to like make yourself redundant, right? So it's almost like, what's the big problem? How do you dive into it first? How do you solve it? And how do you make yourself redundant so you can move on to the next problem? So
Constantly giving yourself a higher leverage position. Yeah,
100%.
Elf, you gave Gymshark a voice. How did you create it or elevate it?
So when I came in, the Gymshark brand and the Gymshark team they were natural geniuses in the social space, right? So I didn't come in to a blank canvas, right? I had to come in and sink or swim effectively because they already had 1 million followers. They were, especially within the Birmingham region or within the bodybuilding region, they were like superstars, right? So they were having 4-hour queues at Body Power and all that stuff. So the traction was already in motion. So what I had to do is understand, first and foremost, the issue that they had was inconsistency, right? Because whilst they did understand what worked, it was based on who was running the account at that time. And before I joined, nobody was the singular voice, if you will. It was multiple people, sometimes even posting when they're out on a night out, and then it's like 9 p.m. it's time to post and they'll put something out. And it worked, and they were going post by post, but there was no bigger plan or strategy, right? And I guess my goal was to understand what made the brand really special and understand what elements of that people like and wanted to continue, but what is this actually building up to, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want to be around for the next 100 years, right, you have to have some form of consistency. You have to be humanized in some shape or form. And the issue with social, not issue really, but the thing that people forget about social is, a lot of people ask me whether their brand needs to have a face. You don't have to have a face if your brand acts like a human, right? And what you don't want to do is be a human with like multiple personalities, effectively, right? So you need to understand what are your values as an individual, what are the things that you will say and you won't say, but then obviously you have different perspectives and different interests. And that's actually how we built out the Gymshark ecosystem. So the main page on Instagram was kind of like your shop window, right? And had to act accordingly as like the space where you like enter the Gymshark universe, if you will, and from there you can go to the side that best interests you. And we realized the big piece of work we actually had to do was the Gymshark women, because at the time I joined, I think we had Sarah join us, which is like the first a woman to join the marketing team. Before, there was just a bunch of guys pretending to like know what like the people audience wanted. But where the voice came from was, we said, well, we're not the audience. The audience are communicating with us and each other. Why don't we just listen, right? And then create a personality that they can best almost like connect with, like a mirror. Right? I would listen to Beyonce before posting on Gymshark Women, right? I would literally look at how they're engaging with our influencers, how they're engaging, and we literally built out a voice for Gymshark Women, especially to an audience where at the time when Gymshark started, like women going and doing bodybuilding was not a thing, right? It wasn't a thing. It was not glamorized. It was not like commercialized. It wasn't a thing. So we decided to take a little bit of what was happening in beauty with like your Forever 21s and the brands were popping up then, and we brought it into the fitness space. And that's why the brand did very, very well. And what we said is, okay, every time we move into a different platform, what's the perspective of the brand there? How do people communicate with us and each other? And how do we become the mirror for that space? Kind of like did with Sign, right? Be that inner voice that you feel like just gets you. But that came from us understanding how the audience communicated and us putting that together and being the voice for them. So we're not the voice for the brand, but because we're the voice of the people on that platform, we're there for our own individual voice. If that makes any sense.
I love how you said that they also communicate with each other.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother element as well.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of brands, they're not even in the conversation, right? Gym lingo changes over time, right? And we realized that if you have to think about Gymshark's Twitter, that was an account, or X, that was an account that we did very, very bad at for a very long time because we tried to treat it like how we did it Instagram. It was only when we realized that people just talk about shit that they hate. We're like, actually, what does that mean to the fitness audience? And what is the fitness audience ranting about? And it became like this inner voice of somebody that likes to go to the gym, but they also have some things that they don't really like about the gym. And we kind of like talked about that, like the fact that we hate it when we leave our headphones when you're on the way to the gym, the fact that we don't like when people grunt, eating chicken and rice every day is like the boringest thing ever. But then people that are within the space get that, and it feels like you actually understand them. I think what brands forget is that it's not about the message you want to push to your audience, it's about them feeling like you actually understand them and you're a true representative for their values and what they care about. And that's what your content try to do, just to demonstrate that we get them.
What I absolutely love every time we get a chat, is it's so it's such a complex world, but actually so simple yet to when you explain it. I mean, Gymshark are a fantastic example of scaling a brand with creators. But really the essence that we're seeing in the power of creators is that they are the heart of the community. And that's what drives relevancy, which pulls people through the mid-funnel down to having wider success. What we spoke about earlier with advocacy. I really see you have a crystal clear understanding of community-first marketing.
Well, so I think that the thing that people forget is that as marketeers, we like to have these like terms that makes us believe that we're very innovative and new. But then the thing is, these things have always existed. The platform just changes, right? Like Michael Jordan existed before. He was one of the biggest influences of them all. Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, the blues artists. So it went from like music to movie stars to sports stars, and it just changes. Wherever attention is and trust still stands, where you almost like, who are the people that you go to? One, from an attention standpoint, and whose reputation or perspective do you actually trust to make your own decisions in life, right? And as soon as somebody breaks that trust, people go on to the next thing. And it started off as people going into social media with influencers, and the bigger your profile, the more credibility you had. But what happened was, as advertisers ruined everything by giving everybody so much money that it became a business thing, and then people realized that people are advocating for things that they don't actually care about. So then people went to mid-level influencers and to micro-influencers. And that's what's going to happen is as soon as their trust is abused there, they're going to go to the next thing, right? So really, the whole element of working with creators or working with almost like rented advocacy, if you will, or rented relevancy, if you will, is making sure you attach yourself where there's still true credibility and also retention, right? And the issue is that travels and changes. And the brands that last the longest are those that, and I think a lot of people talk about and are obsessed about the concept of learning, and I love to learn, but I realize that the best brands that are able to leverage this and be able to last 100 years are those that unlearn better than anybody else. Rewiring that software is way harder than learning something new, right? And that's the big thing, is like, one, understanding the current state of attention and relevancy and who has it right now and where are they, and then being able to have the courage to unlearn what you've known, even if it has worked for you, to pursue longevity for your brand. I think that's what we've done really, really well. So the transition from Instagram to TikTok for myself was really easy. We went to a WeWork, and there were like 4 members of staff there, right? And back in 2018, I think it was still called Musical.ly at the time. And I was telling the team, we need to be on this Musical.ly app because Gary Vee's talking about it all the time. And he tends to be right. And everyone was like, no, we're good on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I dragged Noel, our CBO, there, and they told us there's like 70 million 13 to 18-year-olds on this platform. And I was like, oh my God, we've already lost, right? We need to go now, because as soon as you go into a platform, into a space where you feel like things are a little bit like, not weird, but I don't really get it. That's when you know that you need to make the leap.
Yeah.
And unlearn and then rewire and see what is the uniqueness that happens. And once you understand that TikTok is an entertainment platform, it gives the brand the opportunity to showcase that personality and connect at that level. Then you just find creators that do that better than you, right? That have the credibility, the relevancy, and you just work with them. That's what we do. It's just like, who does that better than us? Who has that credibility and relevancy better than us? We can create faster than us. How do we attach them with the brand and work with them long term? Try to break it down as simple as possible.
I mean, it ties it, I've been listening to you there, it ties it back so cleanly to when we talk about what makes magic happen in marketing. It's having both the art and the science.
100%.
It's not either one or the other. And I think when you said people always want to have a label, it's they're latching onto something so they can create a science of it, make sense of it. And we want to be able to predict things because it gives us an ease. But culture does move very quick. Relevancy moves very quick. Trust has to follow with that to fail to be relevant.
Yeah.
So I love how you describe rewiring the nervous system when it comes to that. And that is art and science.
100%. Because at the end of the day, I think a lot of people think that I'm very creative. I'm not. My brain is just machine learning of loads of creative failures. And it's basically a process of elimination for what's a shit idea versus a good idea, right? And it's basically data. I've just seen so much data. I've just put in so many reps that I start to associate when I've seen something that's worked before in a new space. And I can, like, people call that innovative, but it's just taking something that's worked somewhere and putting it somewhere new. And really you're using case studies of something that's worked before. And in human nature, if a hook resonates with people universally, it's easily transferable. I think a lot of people like to go against the tide and force the idea onto the world. It just doesn't work. I was actually speaking to somebody and they said that in the music world and in the art world, they encourage people to produce a body of work that's unique to them and then add trends to it, right? That's actually the best way to be an artist. But that is in direct conflict with how you grow on social media. Because on social media, you have to understand the things that resonate with people, apply your own perspective to it, and then as people start to trust you as the go-to location because you're there for everybody else, you start to add your own style to it. It's complete opposite. That's why a lot of creative people actually don't do very well on social. The people that do the best are data-led people.
It's interesting.
How can brands tap into the magic of the art and the science?
I think a big part that's underestimated is what your team actually looks like and who you hire within your team. I know there's like using measurement, and there's obviously working with creators as a way to kind of like blend those two together. But effectively starts with the mindset that your team has to have, right? Because at the end of the day, we have to work in a very, very fast pace to be able to make things happen. And you have to make sure that you're hiring people that get it, right? So before you can think about being great on social, you have to think about the winning team that's going to be on there. And I always talk about the fact that there's 4 depths of like somebody that's really like social first in terms of understanding. And first and foremost, it's all about, I think that creativity is the minimum requirement. I think that actually like being creative is cool, but then that's like very basic. I think a lot of people, that's when they're starting their creative journey or their social media journey, they come with creative ideas, but then people don't really care about creative ideas. They want to see that. It's almost like somebody said something about the fact that if you ever make a lot of money, I think it was Daniel Ek, he said he made a lot of money and he bought himself a Ferrari and he thought that everybody would look at him and acknowledge him. But really what he found is that people were looking at the Ferrari and seeing themselves in it instead of him in it, right? So effectively what social is not about your creative ideation. It's more about them seeing themselves within your brand, right? So it's not about you, it's about them. And you're almost able to like position them within your brand. So creativity is cool, but it's the very basic point. One level down is all about platform mechanics. And here's where the science comes in place, right? Because at the end of the day, what platforms want to do is encourage people to stay on for as long as possible. And they reward people that are able to retain that attention, right? So if you're able to understand fundamentally that, and then how that applies on all the different platforms and the levers that you have, then you're pretty much a good social person. You have the creativity, you understand the platform mechanics, and you don't just understand one platform mechanic, you understand multiple, then you're a junior social media person. And then you go one level down is people that understand psychology. Because I believe that social media is actually behavioral psychology at scale. There's people that I spoke to that don't give a toss about social media, but they understand people very well. Though after I speak to them about social, they just get it, right? Because what you understand is all about reinforcements, right? You're basically saying, I'm gonna pull this trigger, which will start this chain of events that will eventually lead to this, right? That's like human, like psychology understanding. That's why whenever I get CVs and I see somebody that studies psychology, I'm like, that person's the right person, right? Because you have to understand people and the fact that people always change. And sometimes they will prefer to take another brand, not because your brand's bad, it's because a generation wants a brand of their own. So for you to be able to transcend a generation, you have to earn that right? And that is why Nike will go from having Neymar until he's 27, and then they'll just completely let him go to anybody else, and then go straight for who's the next like 18-year-old coming in, because they're continually reinventing themselves every 7 years. That's why every car tries to do that. So every gaming console tries to do that. And the same thing with social media is, you got about 7, and even a creator, I think that now we've realized that a creator has about like 2-3 years of relevancy, right? Because people just get tired. I've seen the same person every single time, unless you're a YouTuber. YouTubers have the
constantly rewire their own.
Yeah, but they always are changing. Like, think about the Sidemen. They do Sidemen football. And what do? They invite who the hottest new creator is, and they attach themselves again. It's an engine of unlearning and learning and unlearning, and they bring in new people, and they're renting credibility because they get it 100%. Drake, I'm a big Drake fan. His albums are always a Drake body of work, but his features is where he brings in the new young artists, right? And somebody actually said that he's never the lead name on like side projects that are not album related. He'll do a feature and dabble into mumble rap, but then it's not me, it's me exploring, right? So people that are able to understand how human nature works, and the fact that people like variety, people don't like you. I think a lot of people say, well, you should have just done what you were doing back in the day, but you'll never be having a 15-year run if you just keep doing the same shit. Jay-Z says, if you want my old stuff, buy my old album, right? It's exactly that whole nature, right? And then the final one is all about understanding of social dynamics, right? And what I mean by that is there's a reason why Ryanair can get away with things that British Airways can't, right? Same industry, pretty much sell the same thing, can all use the same platform, but if Ryanair says something cheeky, people see it as a laugh because that end audience sees them as one of them. But British Airways is seen as prestige. So therefore, if you're seen belittling anybody or whatever, it's in poor taste. So you actually have to understand who, like, there's things that Gymshark could get away with, being the challenger brand that Nike can't get away with. because one is seen as being cheeky and the other is seen as being a bully. So you have to be able to understand who is your brand in society and how do you play that role.
That's also what makes it beautiful. If everyone was the same, it'd be boring.
And that is why, like, there's certain people that are able to do all those 3 levels, but they can only do that for one brand because they can't method act and be a completely different person.
I love that. So you got creativity,
platform mechanics, psychology, social dynamics.
That's
and
wonderful.
I think that if you have people that have, usually it's very rare that you have a person that has all.
Yeah.
If they have all, they should be like one of the most senior people.
And these are 4 things you look at when you're looking at people to join your team.
Yeah, and then when we realize is like where are the strongest and where are the weakest, and then we help them upskill.
It's awesome.
Because then what happens is, I just have to throw them a problem and I know that I know how they're going to go about it, right? So I think that teams, or when you're hiring your social team, or when you're hiring your community and advocacy team, you need to make sure that they know all these different things. They're both a blend of art and science, right? And philosophy. And that's really, really important. Yeah.
Something that we're working towards is to, just listening to you say that, I'll go a step back. You're saying that your role is to empower your team and give them a platform. The role of ThisThat is to give advertisers a higher platform and to be able to do their best work. One of our earliest conversations, you said you can measure our creative brilliance. That's very cool. To see your excitement in that very much excited me. I think there's a lot more work that the market research world needs to do to evolve the needs of advertisers. What are the things that you think are needed? Like, what things are your biggest pain? What things are you most excited about? How could we, or how could the industry help people like you?
The thing is that a lot of people, like I say, a lot of marketing companies are really great at exciting the CMO, right? And the creative teams, right? There's actually not a lot that you can say. No, there's a lot of things that you can say to wow them, but usually when it comes to ideas, everybody has ideas. The team probably had the ideas, it just didn't get executed, right? The challenge is getting CEOs and COOs to get it, right? And that is the barrier between more companies becoming more social first, because there's this real obsession with certainty. If you think about the most recent form of like advertising that has really, really like invited their attention, but then also driven a lot of revenue within the space is paid ads. Because people understand, I put £10 in and I get £100 out.
Right.
Although they forget that the fact that you have to make sure that you connect your paid strategy with your organic strategy and your influencer strategy so they complement each other. But because that's the thing that they can understand, therefore that's where the budget goes, right?
And it's also a thing they can understand very quickly.
Yeah. So the issue is not, it's actually how do you break down this whole ecosystem of different like fragments into a simple thing that people can understand, right? Which is why we've been speaking about how do you actually demonstrate that this is working, right? Because at the end of the day, we've all accepted that we know that this is working somehow, right? And those that are able to be in a position to risk their job every day based on their gut feel are able to have the privilege to do that at a very high level. But most people are held down simply because they can't measure it. And someone might literally tell you that I know that this is the right thing to do, but unless I can measure and justify it, well, you just can't do it. And that's the issue right now, right?
It's getting all of that art and science and beauty into one number that a CFO can understand. And I was on another panel this week where they were asked if there's one metric you want to see less of, what would that be? And then there was 4 panelists, and all of them were saying different words but the same thing. One was saying reach, one was talking about impressions. There's all the different vanity metrics. The beautiful thing though with something like earned media value, whilst it's got all its flaws, is that a CFO can understand, I've given you 100K and you've given me 200K worth of earned media value. Nice, cool. Let's do that again. It's, yeah.
And even if you're able to understand the components that shift business results in some shape or form, right? Like, even if through, I think it's all about finding the components that actually matter. So reach versus like brand search terms versus like engagement versus sentiment versus like traffic to website, all these different things, so you can boil it down to a score, and when you break it down, you can see what things you need to do to improve, and then compare it with how other people are doing. Because at the end of the day, what people love more than anything is, yeah, you can tell us that we're growing year on year, but what is that in comparison to? And because people are very, very competitive, I'll give you an example. I think that LinkedIn should do a lot more to leverage the fact that they have like really great creators on the platform. I think they're very, very cold about it. I think they try to do a few things that are like, okay, but a platform that really was on the creator side is a platform called Favicon. And what they did is they just basically put a ranking in, and basically said, here are the top creators based on our like ranking system. I think it's based on like followers, follower growth, engagement rate, number of posts, and also like sentiment. And they like ranked people, like all creators in a top ranking. And then from there you can say, well, this is actually the number one creator, not because you're more famous, just because statistically they're the number one creator. And that got everybody to say, okay, now that's fair. So now I know where I stand, and I know who's the best, and I know what I need to compete with. And that has driven more people to, one, jump on the platform because they know who to learn from. And it's increased and improved the level of quality of content that's happening because everybody knows who's best in class.
That's interesting.
Now the issue is that in the world of branding, unless a media outlet says that these are the top 10 brands, but then why? Because there's no real correlation as to why. They probably just paid to get featured, right? Or it's probably somebody's personal preference. There's no unifier. And I think that it has to be based on things that actually drives brand advocacy, that actually drives brand impact and business impact. But then you know that if you continue to do these things, your business actually tangibly gets better.
Yeah.
There has to be an association. And once somebody figures that out, I think that that's going to be the thing that's going to actually bring the whole marketing world to, one, start to consider things like organic again, because they're like, well, we can see what we're actually saying, right?
Well, there's so many sound bites in that.
That's what I do, man.
Trying to compartmentalize those thoughts. You said that they need to improve, and you gave the whole story of how people are watching what's happening on LinkedIn and how they're trying to improve. And then you brought it back to the importance of understanding the value of brand, product associations, and how can we measure that. Earlier I mentioned that we're looking to evolve market research needs of advertisers. One motto that we have is to do better. And when I think of to do better, there are two remits within that we need to strive towards. One is getting better at measuring what happened. So that is not just the performance metrics, but also the brand metrics that include these associations or advocacy driven things. And then the next thing after what has happened is, what should I do next? We need to get better at understanding what to do next. We get all this data, but the insight is very hard to draw from it. Having actual data on this is what we can do with the creative. Maybe we can change the community targeting this way, or maybe it's the distribution and how we get to them. Key associations, what should we change, what works, what doesn't work. All those things help us get better and better and better. But having a clear North Star to work towards helps us with that. And the issue that we have, although I said EMV is great, if we're the sense of CMOs and CFOs, it's not great in having a North Star metric to run towards. It's a vanity metric, and it's forcing everyone to optimize towards a media model that doesn't necessarily actually always work.
And also, I think that it's much better to be an advocate, right? Because that is what the output of community wants to have. Like, you know that you have a community when you mess up, which is what I'm an advocate.
Yeah.
And also when you do something and they almost like, we used to say, and this is just based on like just natural and common sense understanding, that more people will see Gymshark through the amplification from our community than from ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So that is why Gymshark 66 made sense. That was one of my first concepts. It was like, okay, John Lewis owns Christmas, right? And everybody talks about that. It's not Christmas until John Lewis gets involved, despite everybody trying to copy it. So we said, well, what's our version of that? And we said, well, it's yearly chapter, right? And
Of course.
what happens is around Black Friday, we're very commercial led, right? And what we realized that we have two main themes across the year. 4 quarters, 2 themes: commercial driven, brand driven. Commercial driven, brand driven.
Those are the 2 pillars of marketing. You've got brand and performance, right?
And then what happens is, it's almost like you're casting out a net, and you need to reel it in.
Yeah. And you can't just do one or the other, right?
You have to do both.
You have to do both.
Because
You're just pushing on performance over and over again. You're eating into that brand equity, which you build that brand again up again.
And I'll tell you what, there's this very, very common trend that's out there right now. And I go back to just why it works so well, is that there's a lot of brands that came out around 2019, 2020, right? That were nowhere, and then automatically they went from 0 to 10 million revenue, right? But they're all going through the same problem right now, which is they don't have the brand. Because first, we're given visibility, so people will try. But then once everybody understood that sort of thing, the issue with paid media, and sometimes the issue with data, is that everybody can do it too, because they know what you've done. If you know that you use paid data and this is the strategy, I can replicate that. But then you have to tap into something that people can't replicate, which is brand. That's why they both need to work together, right? Because that effectively is your point of difference, right?
When I see brand and performance, it's just echoing so much with the art and the
Science.
Yeah.
They go together. If you are too weighted one side, you're always going to be compromised.
Yeah.
And the thing with Gymshark 6 was, we said, okay, we've just spent a month bombarding you with sales messages.
Yeah.
Now we're going to give something back to you.
Yeah.
And what we've done is we said, you know what, if you post about Gymshark and you have Gymshark as a 6 hashtag for 66 days, based on the whole 66 days to form a habit concept. That's where it came from. And then we're like, you can have, and we thought about this last day before we launched the challenge, but why don't we just give away Gymshark, free Gymshark for a year? And it went nuts. There's 66, funny enough, 66,000 hashtags per year. But if you think about it, the average person on Instagram has 400 followers, right? Last time I checked. And if they're posting about Gymshark on their feed every day, or now stories every day, how much free traction is that? Right? So what we're seeing is...
Say community media earlier. Is this tying into that?
Yeah. So what's happening there is we're seeing our resting heart rate go up and up and up and up and up and up, because we know that their friends are saying, who the hell is this brand that you're talking about all the time? Right? We're finding it out. We even found it even crazier when we had sales drops that sold out, and people would post saying, fucking hate this brand. I wasn't able to get this legging that I really want.
Yeah.
That was way more effective in driving purchase intent than when people got what they wanted. Because our friends are like, why are you so mad that you didn't get this thing? Now I am intrigued. So we realized that at first we were like, is that a good thing for us? But then we would look at the back end, our website traffic will go up, our followers will go up. And that's the second wave. So we're like, oh, so we need to have products that are always on, and some products that are there to create FOMO. And if you can balance those two things, advocacy works in 2 different ways. One, literally saying that this is the best brand ever, or the other saying, I want this so much, but I can't get it. And both work the same way in terms of pulling people in because they don't want to be left out, right? And that's not a creative thing, right? It is a creative thing, but it's more like you're letting the community do the talking for you. And a lot of brands feel like they need to be the spokesperson for the brand all the time. But really, when you have an advocate or an audience, they do all the work for you. You don't have to speak as much, right? But you just have to make sure that you pull the right levers to facilitate that conversation.
So it's when we bring it back to this, like a North Star metric for the industry, like in our media value, having something that actually works for the brand world, the art and the science world. We've spoken about this concept of earned brand value.
Yeah.
How cool would it be if we had something we could all work towards that? We've seen numerous times of having different distribution channels of, you earlier mentioning investing more into organic perhaps, where you had organic or paid, where you work with different creators and cost per mil is all over different places, but actually the impact completely different. You might have a campaign where you're working with the creator and the organic content obviously has a huge cost at CPM, but then when you amplify it and paid, it goes down, and they're wanting to go, let's double down on the paid. But maybe the audience that you're reaching with that don't necessarily see the relevancy of that. It might not speak to their associations or their priorities they have with the brand. And so looking at that brand impact down, that helps you understand where to talk to people, how to talk to people. And just everything that you're saying with community, having that voice, having community media, share of voice, brand trackers, brand equity, all these different pieces. I think as an industry, we ought to come together to figure out how can we measure that in a way that we can all agree on as a very beautiful, united North Star metric.
Because I think, so why is that important, right? Because I think that the brands that are doing this very, very well, without it, they wouldn't want this to actually happen, right? Because they are brave enough to take that leap of faith. Like me at Gymshark, I'm like, well, it's okay for the industry not to know. Like it's okay because I know this works. I've been able to articulate it in a way that the leadership team understands. Therefore, it just keeps being our competitive advantage. But the reason why it should happen is because at the end of the day, for everybody to still be around and in business, the experience on the platforms have to be great.
Yes, 100%. Not just even, I mean, that makes sense for the platforms, but it also makes sense for the consumers. You've got rising ad blockers, you've got people becoming more sort of apathetic towards ads and just not really even paying attention to it.
And then you therefore become guilty by association. So you might have been doing the right thing. Because they watched a fucking ad before they saw your page that was terrible, the whole association with brands, you just get looped into that whole experience, right? It's like, if there are better ads that actually help drive advocacy and help build connection, then more people will have a great experience on the platform, and therefore more ads would work better. So therefore people will make more money.
Absolutely beautiful. ThisThat's purpose is to make marketing enjoyable. And when you look at the definition of marketing, it is both market research and advertising to sell or promote products. And what we're speaking here is I'm hearing we need to evolve market research to the needs of advertisers. I mean, to make market research actually enjoyable for advertisers, so that advertisers can make ads enjoyable for consumers.
100%.
It's one ecosystem. It needs to be more united, and they need to work better together in that art and science.
But instead, what's happening is, it sounds like a band. People are treating like paid organic influencers as like, instead of it being different instruments playing the same song, we're treating it as like different lead singers yelling on top of each other. And everyone who yells the loudest is the person that we're gonna like spend money on. That's shit, right? That's terrible. And that's what's happening, right? Is that everybody has like different products for different things. And what they're saying is, let's say, for example, I'll use a third element here. You have these three different things and they're going so far away from each other because the influencer agency wants to drive their narrative. The creative and organic channel wants to win a Cannes Lion. The influencers over here, the paid team is driving like their own agenda, and then the brand is going as far away.
It's not united.
Whereas if they work together, because they're driving a single North Star,
absolutely,
it's a much better way if we have a consistent voice.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's with right now with mixed media models, EMV, we're all optimizing towards a media play. I think there needs to be more of a balance of optimizing a media play as well as a brand play.
And I'll give an example. So there was a time when I think it was, I forgot when it was, I think it was around 2017, 2018. So we started doing paid social. So that fundamentally changed our brand, and we made sure that, because it started from like...
Was it all organic before that?
Yeah, all organic. And then it was the big tipping points for Gymshark, from a social lens at least, was Gymshark Women. Then it was learning how to do paid ads. So much so that we got an honorable mention from Mark Zuckerberg and Charles Hansberg in that earnest call.
Very cool. Mark Zuckerberg, I want to make a point earlier. We'll get right back to this. He studied both psychology and computer science.
It's like I said, when you start to look back, it's the same trend. And what we realized is that, and then it got to a point when the teams got separated, And now everybody had their own KPIs, right? Based on whatever it is that was driving best in class for that platform or for that remit. And there was a time when the organic side of the team, we hit and exceeded all of our KPIs, but we're celebrating, but the business is not seeing the same thing because their KPIs are completely different.
It's the and.
Right? So followers are up, engagement's up, yay, but sales are down. So yeah, you're winning, but we're one team. What you do has to have a domino effect on the other teams. All teams have to be trying to do the same thing. And that's the issue, is that when you KPI paid social for like efficient cost per acquisition, and then organic for follower growth, they come in direct conflict sometimes, right? There has to be things that complement each other and go towards a North Star. And that's just how that's why most businesses are getting it wrong. It's because they're obsessed. Everyone's in like, they're letting the org chart show instead of forgetting that, well, the brand only sees, it doesn't see the paid team, it doesn't see the regional team, it just sees the brand. And they forget what the audience sees, right? And that's the thing that they need to get back to. Most big brands just operate like a startup. Just do one team, driving one goal, but the issue is that nobody has that goal, right? That if you drive this, it has a trickle effect on everything else. It doesn't happen.
Do you think something like earned brand value could be?
Especially if it also includes like consideration metrics like profile views on your account, and also social referral traffic. If it does something like that, where as part of your score, if you're a 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 100, you're not just great brand wise, you're also great commercially, but you're also great because you've changed up your content.
100%. I mean, ThisThat is widely known as a brand lift solution for the influencer marketing space. That's how we came to market a few years ago. But in the essence of doing better, in the essence of evolving to market research for advertisers, it's very clear to us and the team that our role in this wider mix is to help optimize towards the brand. Clients recently have been saying that they love, as part of these new innovations, that we can measure brand like you would with performance. It's helping them speak that same language. And I love that you're speaking of those things. Other things that we're thinking of bringing to that is share of voice. I love that you mentioned community media, brand trackers, brand equity, all these other pieces. We need to figure out something where everyone can come together and be united within that, and then find out how that works with other North Star metrics that optimize the performance piece.
Who is an industry change maker to you in the creator economy?
To me, change makers, and Elfried are very much one of them. I'll define it and sort of go back into that. It's people who understand the art and the science. It's people who understand what actually drives value long-term for a brand. With yourself, it's understanding how to hear the community voice, how to bring them in, how to build a better brand together with them, and how to do that dance between community, to do the dance between performance and brand building. But we're also seeing with the likes of Whaler and Billion Dollar Boy investing into the creators right now with the university and 529. They are understanding that creators are really brands of their own. Earlier on this week, we had Vicky from Village on, and she described one of her favorite things about creators as they have product market fit. That's like another brand filter for brands to go through. It's people who understand these things and have the conviction and confidence to articulate that over and over again so that we see change.
So I think of mine, if you're a change maker, kind of like I don't want to use the word disruptor. I'm going to use another buzzword called innovators. And I very recently realized that there's two types of innovators. There's those that are able to unlearn and then rewire based on new information or where the world actually is. And then there's those that just happen to be young. And that's what tends to happen, because they are the first people that actually natively use the new technology and they just have one up on everybody else, right? Because they have more space to learn, right? But effectively, I think it's people that are either going to come into a market with like no prior viruses in their system, or those that are able to get a virus blocker and then update their software. And the issue is, just like myself, within my iPhone, is I still don't have the latest version because I'm like, oh my freaking God, as soon as I get it, it's gonna make my phone slower, it's gonna do all this kind of stuff. I'm not a change maker when it comes to technology, right? But that mindset of being very open to like the new and being able to let go of the old, or even elements of the old, and saying, okay, I know that this has worked somewhere else before. How do I apply this in this completely new context, right? And I feel like that's what I deem as a change maker. I would say that as a brand initially, going back to those two spectrums, Gymshark was very much that everybody to the accountant used social. So when I joined the business, like I was by no means like the expert. Everybody knew it better than me, and they knew the brand better than me. I had to earn my stripes, right? But then as we started to transfer outside of the platforms that everybody was naturally good at, that's when I really started to like catch up with them. And then people on a bigger spectrum, somebody like a Virgil, I actually think I'm gonna pick somebody like completely random. I think there's somebody like Bernard Arnault is a change maker. The reason why is because apparently like he himself co-signed that Virgil Abloh should be the creative director at Louis Vuitton. For somebody at that level to be able to understand what's happening at like the cultural level, those are people. And another person is somebody like controversial now, but Vince McMahon back in the day, applying theater and Disney into wrestling. It's people that are able to say, well, this worked here, the world's going here. Mark Zuckerberg is very much that. Elon, they're like, this worked here, we've seen this before, but the world is now here. I'm just going to do that. And they do that all the time. They do that all the time.
How are you making marketing more enjoyable?
I think I'm making marketing more enjoyable by making it simpler for people. I think I actually had a team member interviewed back in like 2018, 2019. And they said the thing that they learned about marketing is all about like keep it simple, stupid, so KISS, right? And I was like, and going back to the whole like, the iPhone keynote in 2007 changed my life forever, because I moved to the UK from South Africa, and I had to like, I used computers, but not to the level that people use it here. So technology was like a new thing to me. And he was able to break down a very complicated world in a way that a mere mortal like me could understand. And I realized that in the marketing space, a lot of the times people say no, or there's friction, simply because people do not understand. So my fundamental goal, and it's very easy for people in marketing to say they don't get it. It's our job to make sure that they get it. So therefore it's our job to make it simple enough for people to understand. And the better you can make it, or the simpler you can make it for people to understand, the more you can make sure that people can see the value in this and what you do. So that's what I try to do. I'm obsessed with that.
And now, time for a game, and a chance to get to know our guests on a bit more of a personal level. It's time for a series of this or that questions.
Which one do you like?
Let's go with this. First one.
What is your hidden talent?
My hidden talent. Okay, so I think that, well, there's the hidden talent that I think that I have, and the hidden talent that my wife says that I have. So the hidden talent that I think that I have is that I am very, very personable, because I'm very empathetic to other people and I love people. So if you think about scaling that up, it's effectively what I do as a profession, is taking this big data point of loads of different people with all these different feelings and all these different desires, wants, etc., and figuring out how to angle a brand in a way that resonates with them. And I can do that on a one-to-one level or on a mass scale level. And that's why whenever I do a talk, I try to connect with people on a one-to-one level. And I think my empathy is probably that. What my wife would say is that, because I'm very convinced that I have like ADHD, I'm very convinced that I do have that. I should get myself really checked out. my perspective is always different to everybody else. So whenever somebody asks me a question, I will always look at it from a completely left field angle, because what I understood is that, from one, going back to the whole thing about simplicity, but also a lot of people think that the problems that they have is unique to them. But if we can point out a different space where somebody else has dealt with that thing before, and just break it down for them, they're able to say, oh, I never thought about it from that perspective. So the biggest KPI that I get is people saying, I've never thought about it that way. And she says that that's what I do very well. Looking at things from a different thought process.
I love that.
Yeah. This or that.
Given you went with this first, I'll go with that.
Okay. What did you want to be as a kid?
Oh. Wow. I think that evolved and changed on a very regular basis as a kid. Yeah, that definitely changed a lot. I think I'll go with there was one that was a fairly common thread for at least a year. That's probably the most consistent one in that time. This is about between 10 and 11.
Yeah.
So that age. Sims.
Yeah.
A game where you could build houses. I was so obsessed with that game. I loved it. I would build houses constantly, and I'd show it to my mom and like, Mom, one day I'll build a house like this and you can live in this. Being an architect, I think when I describe who I am now, I describe myself as a creative scientist. Did mathematics and science at school, but actually went to music school earlier on in life before university. I love both art and science. That's why I love this theme of the topic today. Yeah, architecture gives a blend of that.
Good. You call our team members architects as well.
The other one.
That. So I have to go for, I'm going for that then.
Yeah. Okay. You can also choose not to answer this one if you want.
Okay.
Who is the most famous person on your phone?
The most famous person on my phone. So locally is Ben Francis.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Globally, I think. Who's the most famous person on my phone? Probably NFL fans, yeah. DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I met him at Cannes. So it's pretty good.
That's fucking sick.
And Brandon Marshall. That's probably that.
Sick. I'll go for this then.
What is your biggest failure?
I think I fail a lot.
Yeah.
I think I fail multiple times a day. I think it's beautiful to fail.
Yeah.
You learn from it. You grow from it. You were earlier on talking about, taking that leap of faith.
Yeah.
If you're trying to be an innovator, you're constantly moving in the unknown. But if you don't take that step, you don't know. And so, I think almost with a bias towards action, it is ultimately going to be full of failures. The most important thing is you just, you don't fail so much that you're done for.
Mm-hmm.
I need to be able to act quick and course correct quick. But I fail a lot.
Fail fast.